What is happening, everybody? Trey here, joined by my dad, Sean, and today, reactions to the classics. We are going to be drafting our favorite albums from the 1980s decade right here. We're going to go 10 apiece, so best albums of the 80s. Here we go, man. It was a tough exercise. We did this, Dad, for the 60s, for the 70s, and if you're new to the channel, we've been running a series that started at the year 1965, going all the way to current day, where we each draft 5 albums apiece. So, we'll put links to all those down in the description.
Yeah,
too.
Go back and catch up if you haven't already. Pay close attention. We're going to know who you think won, and also, if you can, your top 10 albums of the decade, maybe your top 5. You know, we had some time. This took a lot of time to pick 10 each. You can give us your top 5. I'll give you a free pass on that. So I start out, as Trey said, my number 1 album of the 80s. You know, it's always tough at the top of these lists and at the very bottom, because you're like, what am I going to leave off? And at the top, it's like, what is the best? And when you have the number 1 pick, you're picking the best.
Puts that pressure on.
There's a lot of pressure on. There's no wrong answer about for the first 5 or 6 albums on here, but I'm going to go R.E.M. Their debut, Murmur. I think it's their best album. I know a lot of people don't hold it that high, but April of '83, IRS Records. Went to 36 in the U.S., which actually is shocking because the album charts were very difficult back then. Rolling Stone picked it as their best album of 1983. Keep that in mind, because when we get to these other heavyweights, you're like, they picked this album of these guys that really no one knew who they were. You got Radio Free Europe, Moral Kiosk, Perfect Circle, one of my favorite songs. It's the sonic experience of that. And Trey, I think in the running, obviously, since I picked it number 1 decade, for the best debut albums ever.
No, man, I really dig this record. I don't think of it as highly as you. I don't have it in this top sphere, but
and you don't have it back here on our band.
No, I don't. But I do really enjoy Murmur, and you know, we did a listening party to it, and that was great fun. And
yeah, we got a review.
It holds up so well atmospherically. But
and I'll point out before you pick yours that we do have reviews and reactions to a lot of these up. I'll link those below as well.
But now, my number 1 pick right here. And
it is on the wall. That's why I made that comment.
Kate's looking, man. It's Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. Her 5th record here atop the UK chart, man. This the reason I like this album so much and pick it as my top album of the decade is it has its first side filled with some of the best, more, you know, I don't want to say pop songs because they're not just traditional pop, but, you know, songs that are a bit more accessible, I guess you could say. Cloud Busting, one of my favorite songs of all time, of course, Running Up That Hill, Hounds of Love, the title track, The Big Sky, so fun. And then that second side, we have that, you know, concept.
It's almost like 2 albums in one.
Yeah.
That are both executed perfectly.
Yeah, so you got the more accessible, you know, fun type of tracks, and then you got where your more artsy concept as well, with the whole ninth wave about a woman drifting to sea after a shipwreck, and you know, just so much great musical shifts throughout that second side. So if you've never given this a spin, I definitely would suggest it. Obviously, if I'm choosing it as my first pick right here,
and a ton of courage to put an album out like that.
Oh,
where you have the 2 different. Because I
man.
remember the first time I heard that second side, I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
The more you listen to it, the more you get it. Next up for me, an album that was definitely in contention for number 1, and it's probably not what you boys and girls think. Prince.
Ooh,
Purple Rain.
He's always watching.
He's always watches. 6th studio album. Number 1 for 24 weeks. I cannot tell you, being an 80s kid and a kid of the charts back then, how insane that was, because there's a lot of competition. 25 million copies sold. In conversation, Trey, for the greatest opener closer ever.
I'd agree.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Let's go crazy with Purple Rain. We got When Doves Cry, of course, the biggest hit on here. I Would Die For You is a banger.
Love that.
And Darwin Nicky's important, because one Tipper Gore got upset about this when her 11-year-old daughter was listening to it, which I get now, having a daughter. And that's why we have parental advisory on all of our albums. That started it.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I think Prince is on that very, very short list of best just artist of the 80s in general when you look at his entire decade.
Oh, he is. And I think he's on the short list of greatest all-around musician of all time.
Yeah, man. Playing all his stuff, writing, it's ridiculous.
Him,
so.
McCartney, Bach. Let's go, boys and girls.
I love it, man. So, yeah, great pick right there. And now I'm going with my one of my favorite bands of all time, and it's going to be the Smiths. The Queen is Dead, ladies and gentlemen, their 3rd album right here. You know, here Morrissey tackles everything from the politics and the Queen, love, their record label, There's a Light That Never Goes Out, one of the, you know,
song's fantastic.
Lovely songs, Boy with the Thorn in His Side. You have that iconic jangly guitar by Marr mixed with the more depressing, brooding lyrics of Morrissey, and that was they were at the peak of their game. I love Symmetry Grates. I Know It's Over. Man, all great songs right here, all on the same record. So that is my pick. And what are you going with now?
An album that I never heard of till we did our run through the 80s. Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden. I mean, I'd heard of the album. I never listened to it.
Talk Talk album, man.
Fourth studio album, only 6 songs. Crazy stories about, they're working in the studio in darkness. Takes them about 6 months to do it. They barred the EMI executives, the record label, and their manager from coming there. Usually the studio was totally blacked out. They'd guide the session musicians into play, and they wouldn't even see each other. The track would be played through the just a crazy way that this thing came about.
Mark Hollis, Mark Hollis, the big creative force, has that perfectionist type quality. And if you're going into an album like this expecting some radio hits, you're gonna be disappointed.
No, you got to listen to it. It's 6 songs. It's over 40 minutes, so it's 6 songs. Just sit there and listen to it. The more you listen to it, the more you get it. The musicianship is top notch, and it had to take my 3rd spot.
No, man, I like that pick right there, and I'm going now with Pixies, Doolittle, another one of my favorite bands, man. Their 2nd record, one of the more influential records of the decade, in my estimation. Of course, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, quite influenced by this during the recording of Nevermind. Just an alt-rock classic, and I mean, you have everything from Debaser, Tame, Hey, Gouge Away, Monkey Gone to Heaven, Wave of Mutilation, Here Comes Your Man. I mean, all those still get radio play to this day, and they, again, we're all on the same album right here. Shout out to Francis Black and company.
Yeah, great. I'm looking at your next picks going, how'd I let you get those? But then I look at mine and I'm like, that's how. Stone Roses next up for me, self-titled debut album, sold over 4 million copies. Not successful at first, but they did it the old way, man. They were doing small concert venues. NME and Melody Maker gave them a little bit of love, and eventually they grinded it out. Now it's considered one of the best albums of all time, and especially in the UK, one of the best UK albums of all time. You got I Want to Be Adored, I Am the Resurrection, almost a 4-minute instrumental outro. John Squire's guitar work is fantastic, and of course Ian Brown's vocals are great. So we love that one. We have a review of that up, and then your next pick is fantastic.
Yeah, kind of keeping in that same later 80s vein, another 1989 record right here. Another fantastic group from this decade, The Cure. I'm going Disintegration right here. Their 8th record, just some awesome gothic rock atmospheres that we have here. You have the hits like Love Song, but you also, another one of my favorites is Pictures of You. The bass line on Fascination Street is just so lovely. Lullaby, Plain Song. I mean, this is one too that's clocks in around an hour, like not a wasted song.
It's crazy these albums went this way with Stone Roses and The Cure, because when we did 1989, I went back and forth on which of those 2 albums I was going to take first. So that's kind of crazy to end up like this. Now we're going to go, this man's already appeared on my list, but man, this album is, and I actually had to think in my mind a little bit, is this album better than Purple Rain?
That's a great question.
I don't know, man. I still don't know, but I picked it here. Prince, Sign of the Times, 9th studio album, double album, 6th in the U.S. It took 3 albums that he recorded and put it into 1. He wanted it actually to be a 4 album, but the record company said no way. He did most of his own instrumentation on here. The Revolution is on some of these because it was a 3 album. But title track, one of the greatest political statements that you're going to see, especially at this time, because people weren't making a lot of political statements in the 80s and 87 at this time, and they had earlier.
Well, especially at somebody at Prince's level.
Exactly. You got the very underrated Starfish and Coffee.
Love that one.
The famous You Got the Look. I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man. What just a powerful song. And then The Cross, man. But I mean, this album is so good and so diverse.
No, I think the diversity really, especially when you do a double record, Dad. How many times do we listen to double records and we're like, this was good. It could have been great if it was a single record.
Yeah, or you knock off these 3 songs at least. Yeah, no, and this one is not that way.
No, so that's a rarity right there. So love that pick, man, and love this next band too. Replacements. I mean, you could definitely argue that that Tim or Please to Meet Me deserve it as well, but I'm going with Let It Be, my favorite Matt's record right here, and one of the great angsty teenager, young adult, albums ever. Influenced by rock and got a little punk flavor to it, but also kind of see Paul Westerberg is at kind of a different level as a songwriter and lyricist in that. So I love the opener. I Will Dare. Favorite Thing is beautiful, androgynous, very kind of ahead of its time with its subject matter as well. And Answering Machine closes the album out on a perfect note, all in tune with an answering machine as well. Shout out. So love that album, man. Love the Mats.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I actually like Tim a little bit better, but I can totally understand why you love that. My next pick is one that you stole from me on the Year by Year.
Right.
The Chameleons, Script of the Bridge. This album's phenomenal. Debut. The atmospheric setting on this thing is just unbelievable. You put on the headphones and you just get after it. You got Monkeyland, Up the Down Escalator,
love that song.
Second Skin, Don't Fall, the closing track, View from a Hill. It is so good, Trey. Just it's hard to describe to people. And I had never listened to Chameleons. We'd done a reaction for one of our patrons a long time, but I never listened. And boy, they have a 3-album run here in the 80s that are unreal.
No, and I think this is a good point too to point out in our draft, we're not just choosing the most popular records that you see on every list, but with some of these records that maybe you don't know, maybe go give them a spin, check them out. That's how we discovered some of these.
Exactly,
so,
I discovered some gems.
And speaking of that, we're going to the man, Tom Waits. First record of his I heard, it was a Rain Dog. Shout out to our patron Josh. Who's taken us on a Tom Waits journey right here. But I still think Rain Dogs is his cream of the crop, best of the best. And talk about an album that's very dead. You got like Singapore, which opens it up, and just some like weird rhythms. And you have Time, Downbound Train, which are some of his more famous jams. But just the whole album just switches it around, kind of puts you on the mean street, so to speak.
It does.
And it's one of those that sounds kind of like what the album cover looks like. Tom Waits out of it, Yeah,
19 tracks. That's actually not Waits on the album cover either, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
But it looks just like him. But yeah, Album of the Year by NME, which was a bold choice. Now we're going to go to the album that many of you are clamoring, where's this album? It should have been number one. We got Michael Jackson, Thriller, 6th studio album. Wanted to create an album, even though Off the Wall was a fantastic album, where every song was a single, and 7 top 10 singles, 70 million copies sold worldwide. When we get to these kind of figures, who the heck knows? Sometimes people are picking numbers out of a hat. Number one album in the U.S. in the year 1983, and the number one album in 1984. 8 Grammys. The top on this of me are Billie Jean and Thriller. But I lived through it. I love this album. It's one of those things that's so oversaturated. I don't ever care to hear it again. But this album is fantastic.
I mean, Billie Jean for me is in the running for best pop song of all time.
It's up there.
If you want to get to tell a pop song or
and
whatever,
if you lived through the MTV world like I did, man, this is just I don't even think it's Michael's best. I think Off the Wall is, but this is great.
And if you ever just want to get lost in a Wikipedia diet, you just look at MJ's album sales from record to record. It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable, man.
Especially when you compare what something sells today. It's wild.
It's insane.
But can't argue with that. And I'm gonna go with a hip hop record that really has stood the test of time. Well,
definitely.
The great Public Enemy here. We got one of the meanest MCs to ever do it. Great Chuck D. You have Flavor Flav as the hype man. The Bomb Squad as production, just really kind of pushing hip hop forward. So a very influential record, but also holds up well in its own right. They wanted to create hip hop's version of what's going on.
Yep.
And hey, man, I think they did that quite well. Bring the Noise, Terminator X, To the Edge of Panic, Louder Than a Bomb, Rebel Without a Pause. Man, this is one that just kind of gets you fired up and ready to take on the world and all its issues and trials, and take out these nasty politicians that we have.
There you go, man. That hasn't changed, has it, from the 80s? Well, now we're going to go to an album that it used to be my favorite album of Mr. Bruce Springsteen. It's not anymore, but still an absolutely unreal album. Born in the USA, 7th album. This is the one that put him over the top. I mean, you guys got to remember, this is 9 years after Born to Run. Sold 30 million copies. Oof. 7 top 10 singles. He matched MJ, my previous, Dancing in the Dark in the video, and that's his biggest overall solo hit. It went to number 2. Then you got the title track, of course, which is misunderstood, and that's been covered. But then there's so much diversity here. You got I'm on Fire and Downbound Train, No Surrender, Glory Days, My Hometown, I'm Going Down. 7 of these songs actually were recorded during the Nebraska sessions, the previous album. And I think that's why you got that diversity there. But man, if you guys watch this channel, Bruce is my all-time favorite solo artist, so you can't go wrong with Bruce.
No, man, and I actually recently listened to this for the first time since we reviewed it, years ago, and I was like, man, this holds up so well. And now that I knew more of Bruce's catalog than I did when we initially reviewed it,
of course.
It's just such a fun record that you can, I think, put on for pretty much anybody.
Because it's so much diversity.
They're gonna enjoy it. So yeah, I love that pick there, and I'm gonna go now with Siouxsie and the Banshees, another one of my favorite groups of the 80s here, with Juju, their 4th record, a little early 80s action here, mix of a goth, a little post-punk action, influenced everybody from Billy Corgan to Radiohead. Really enjoyed this record. A-side's excellent, Spellbound, one of the group's most popular and best songs, Arabian Nights, Monitor. Guitar work on here is just kind of at another level, which, you'd expect for kind of a post-punk record. So, and Siouxsie Sioux really delivers a masterful vocal performance, and that's quite versatile as well. So give that one a spin, y'all, if you've never listened to it.
Well, next up for me, I don't think this is their best album. I think it's their 2nd best album, but it lands here for me. U2, the Joshua Tree, 5th studio album, won Grammy Awards for Album of the Year, Best Rock Performance in 1988. Sold over 25 million copies worldwide, just like Prince's Purple Rain. As good a first 3 songs as you could possibly have, Where the Streets Have No Name, With or Without You, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. One Tree Hill, also a very powerful song, but very, very consistent album, but those first 3 are just so unbelievable.
No, man, I mean, I can't go against the old Joshua Tree. I don't think of it as highly as a lot of U2 fans possibly do, but it's still just a classic record. So love that, and gonna get a little metal action in here.
This will get you some votes.
Metallica, Ride the Lightning, baby. Was I gonna go Master of Puppets? You had Kill 'Em All, their first record, but Ride the Lightning is my favorite Metallica record. And I mean, it has the classic title track, which is great, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and then my favorite Metallica song, one of the best songs of the 80s, Fade to Black. I mean, I think James Hetfield doesn't get his due sometimes as a lyricist, as a songwriter, just since,
I agree.
Especially in this earlier Metallica, the riffs were just so heavy, the bass was so awesome. Just some great badass instrumentals on this too. So shout out to
and
Metallica.
A great cameo in the show Billions. So I mean,
there you go. Yeah,
you can't beat that.
So now we're nearing the end of the list at your last pick.
I say this every decade, but it's very hard to pick this last one because it's like, what's it gonna be, man? And I changed this pick 3 different times, but if I went with Tom Petty, Full Moon Fever, debut solo album, 3 in the U.S. Had members of the Wilburys on it, minus Dylan. Jeff Lynne co-wrote a lot of the songs. You got Free Fallin', his biggest solo hit, but you also got I Won't Back Down, Running Down a Dream, You're So Bad, 12 tracks. His best solo album, probably Wildflowers is in there as well, but man, Dylan or Petty firing on all cylinders.
100%, man. I
quite never heard it till you went through.
No, until we did this.
89.
I was like, dang, man, this is 89 is absolutely stacked.
It's a loaded year.
Disintegration, Stone Roses on here, Petty.
I graduated from high school. I mean,
that's
right. Better than that.
Doolittle. I mean, come on now. But I love that pick right there. R.I.P. the great Tom Petty, and I'm gonna finish it off with Dinosaur Jr., You're Living All Over Me. Wow. Their second record, I just love the blend that Jay Massis, the lead man here and guitarist, does with that lo-fi production, and yet you have a lot of noisy guitars. His vocals are a bit more drawn out, so it's just a lot of stuff on paper you wouldn't think would work. And
no, but it is, they're very under. I never heard them until we ran through the 80s, and man, they're very, very good.
So if you want a taste of this, just check out the track Tar Pit, and Little Furry Things in a Jar as well is worth seeking out, and hey man, maybe you'll dig it too. But that wraps up our draft here today.
It does.
Obviously can't draft every great record, but let us know your favorites from the 80s, and also who won from Sean and I today.
Yeah, it's a tough choice, man, because like I said, there's so many great albums that, whoever you choose, it's not going to be a wrong answer unless you choose Trey. But if you'd like to support us anyway, guys, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. They make it possible for us to make videos like this and keep the lights on. They also get some exclusive perks that I know you're going to enjoy.
No, yeah, we got listening parties for a few of these records up over on Patreon as well.
And I'll link everything else that we've done, reacted, reviewed to below.
But, appreciate it, everybody. And we'll be coming back with the 90s once we finish up the 90s draft year by year that we're doing. And depending on when you watch this, hey, it's probably going to be already in the playlist. So,
yeah, exactly.
All that to say, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Happy listening. And until next time, we will see you.